The black town car pulled up to the circular driveway of the estate on Magnolia Hill, and my hands trembled as I gripped my medical degree certificate. 5 years. 5 years of sleepless nights, impossible exams, and dreaming of this moment. I'd imagine my mother's face when I walked through the door, finally Dr. Simone Patterson, ready to make her proud. The house looked different. The garden my mother loved had been redone with modern sculptures that felt cold and sharp. The warm cream paint had been replaced with stark gray. Even the doormat was gone, replaced with stones arranged in a pattern that spelled out AV. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding. A woman I'd never seen before opened the door. She was tall, blonde, dressed in expensive clothes with jewelry that caught the afternoon light. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking me up and down. "I'm here to see Nicole Patterson. I'm her daughter, Simone." The woman's smile widened, but it made my stomach turn. "Oh, you're the daughter. Greg mentioned you might show up eventually. I'm Veronica. Come in." "Veronica?" I stepped inside, confused. "Where's my mother? Where's my father?" "Your father is at the office. As for Nicole, she's working. Let me get her for you." "Working?" My mother had inherited a successful hotel business from her mother. She didn't need to work unless she wanted to. "What do you mean working?" Veronica walked toward the back of the house and I followed. We passed through the kitchen, which had been completely remodeled. Nothing looked familiar. We went down a hallway I barely remembered, past the laundry room, to a door I'd never noticed as a child. Veronica knocked. "Nicole, you have a visitor." The door opened and my world shattered. My mother stood in the doorway wearing a gray maid's uniform. Her beautiful face looked tired, older than her 50 years. Her hair, which she'd always worn in elegant styles, was pulled back in a simple bun. She was holding a dust rag. "Simone." Her voice cracked. "Baby, you're home?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. This had to be a nightmare. Some horrible dream before I woke up and came home for real. "Mom?" I finally whispered. What are you wearing?" My mother looked down at her uniform as if seeing it for the first time. "Oh, this is just... I live here now. I help around the house." "Live here? This is your house." "Our house." Veronica laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the air. "Oh, sweetie, nobody told you? This is my house now. Has been for almost 5 years. Your mother is very lucky I allow her to stay here and work for her room and board." "Excuse me?" I turned to face the stranger. "What are you talking about? Your father and I have been married for 4 years. After your mother's troubles, we thought it was best if she stayed somewhere familiar. We graciously gave her a room and light duties to help her feel useful." I looked back at my mother. "Mom, what is she talking about? What troubles?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "I got sick, baby. In my head. I couldn't take care of myself. Your father had to take over everything. I'm lucky they let me stay. I don't deserve more than this." "You're sick." I reached for her hands. They were rough, covered in small cuts and dry from cleaning chemicals. My mother's hands, they used to be soft, they used to braid my hair and hold me when I cried. "What kind of sick?" "Mentally incompetent," Veronica said, her voice filled with fake sympathy. "The doctors said she couldn't make decisions for herself anymore. Your father had to take control of all her assets for her own protection. When we married, everything naturally transferred to our joint ownership, and then I took sole ownership to simplify things. Your father and I agreed it was cleanest that way." "You took her business?" "Her inheritance. The hotels were sold," Veronica said, examining her nails. "To my brother, actually. He gave us a fair price. The money went into proper investments. Your mother gets everything she needs, don't you, Nicole?" My mother nodded, looking at the floor. "I have a room and food. It's more than I deserve after everything I put everyone through." I felt rage building in my chest, hot and fierce. "Where's my father?" "As I said, he's at the office. He owns a consulting firm now. Doing very well. You can reach him there if you'd like." Veronica handed me a business card. "Though I should warn you, he's very busy these days. You probably should have called ahead instead of just showing up." "Called ahead? This is my mother's house." "Was," Veronica corrected. "It was. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a tennis lesson. Nicole, the guest bathroom needs attention before my book club arrives at 4. She walked away, leaving me standing in the hallway with my mother, who looked at me with eyes that seemed both present and a million miles away. "Mom, come with me. Right now. We're leaving." "I can't, baby. I have work to do. If I don't finish my chores, I lose my room." "Your room?" "Mom, listen to me. Something is very wrong here. You're not sick. You owned hotels. You had money. This doesn't make sense. Your father explained it all to the doctors. I signed papers. I don't remember much from that time, but the doctor said I wasn't well. He had to protect me from myself. She touched my face gently. But look at you. My baby is a doctor now. I'm so proud of you, Simone. So proud. Mom, please, come with me to my hotel. Let's talk about this. I can't leave. This is where I belong now. I understand my place. She kissed my forehead. Visit again soon, baby. But call first so Mrs. Patterson knows you're coming. Mrs. Patterson. This stranger was Mrs. Patterson now. And my mother, who had raised me alone after my grandmother died, who had sacrificed everything to send me to the best schools, who had built an empire from her mother's legacy, was calling herself lucky to scrub toilets in her own home. I left that house with my hands shaking and my heart broken. But as I sat in the town car, I made a promise. I spent 5 years becoming a doctor. I would spend however long it took to destroy whoever did this to my mother. And I would get back everything they stole. Starting with the truth. I checked into the Riverside Hotel downtown and immediately opened my laptop. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was clear. Someone had stolen my mother's life and I needed to understand how. I started with public records. The house deed showed a transfer 5 years ago from Nicole Patterson to Gregory and Veronica Patterson. Then another transfer 2 months later to Veronica Patterson alone. My stomach turned. My father had completely removed my mother from ownership of her own home. Next, I searched for the divorce records. Filed 6 months after I left for medical school. Grounds: Nicole Patterson declared mentally incompetent, unable to manage her own affairs. Attached was a doctor's evaluation signed by Dr. Harold Kemp. I kept digging. The hotel business, Valley Crown Hotels, had been sold 4 years ago. The buyer, Preston Holdings LLC. I searched for Preston Holdings and found it was owned by Preston Marsh. More searching revealed Preston Marsh was Veronica's brother. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Simone Patterson? A man's voice, smooth and professional. Yes. This is Gregory Patterson. Your father. Veronica told me you came by the house today. I closed my eyes, trying to keep my voice steady. Dad. Yes, I came home. I wanted to surprise Mom. I'm sorry you had to see her like that. I should have prepared you. Prepared me? For finding my mother living as a maid. He sighed. It's complicated, Simone. Your mother had a breakdown after you left. She became paranoid, couldn't make decisions, forgot to eat. The doctors said she needed constant supervision. We couldn't afford full-time care, so Veronica suggested she could stay with us and help around the house. It gives her purpose. She owned hotels, Dad. Multiple hotels. How could you not afford care? The business was failing. Your mother couldn't manage it anymore. We had to sell before it collapsed completely. Preston gave us a fair offer. The money is in trust for your mother's care. Then why is she scrubbing floors? Because she wants to feel useful. His voice rose, then calmed. Look, I know this is hard to understand. But your mother is not the woman you remember. She's diminished. This arrangement works for everyone. I want to see the medical records. Silence. Then, those are private. I'm a doctor now, Dad. I can understand medical records. If Mom is truly incompetent, show me the documentation. I don't need to show you anything. I'm her legal guardian. The courts agreed with me. If you want to be part of your mother's life, you'll accept the situation and stop causing trouble. He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. My father, who used to take me to father-daughter dances, who taught me to ride a bike, had just threatened me. I needed help. I spent the next 3 hours researching attorneys who specialized in elder abuse and financial exploitation. One name kept appearing, Jonathan Pierce. His firm had won several major cases against family members who had defrauded elderly relatives. His success rate was impressive, and his reviews mentioned his determination and integrity. I called his office first thing the next morning. Pierce & Associates, how may I help you? I need to speak with Jonathan Pierce. It's urgent. My mother has been declared mentally incompetent, and I believe it was done fraudulently to steal her assets. Mr. Pierce is with a client right now, but this sounds serious. Can you come to the office at 2 o'clock today? I'll be there. The law office was in a renovated building downtown. Jonathan Pierce was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. He listened without interrupting as I told him everything. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. The timeline is suspicious. Your father moved very quickly after you left for medical school. Did your mother have any history of mental illness? None. She was sharp, successful. She ran her business for 20 years. And this Dr. Kemp who signed the evaluation, do you know him? Never heard of him before today. Jonathan pulled up something on his computer. Dr. Harold Kemp. Interesting. He had his license suspended 2 years ago for providing fraudulent disability evaluations. He's currently under investigation for being paid to declare people mentally incompetent so family members could take control of their assets. My heart raced. So this was planned. It looks that way. Your father meets Veronica. They plan to take everything from your mother, they pay Dr. Kemp to declare her incompetent, and then they systematically transfer all her assets to themselves. He looked at me seriously. This is elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. If we can prove it, we can undo everything. How do we prove it? First, I need you to get your mother to see a real psychiatrist for an independent evaluation. Can you do that? She thinks she deserves to be a maid. She won't leave the house. Then we make it happen another way. Tell her you're worried about her health and want her to have a checkup. Frame it as being about her physical health. Once we get her in front of a real doctor, we can assess her mental state. What else? I'll file a motion for access to all financial records from the past 5 years. The business sale, the property transfers, bank records. I'll also depose Dr. Kemp and your father. We'll need testimony from people who knew your mother before this happened. Friends, business associates, anyone who can speak to her mental competency. How long will this take? Months, possibly longer. These cases are complex. But Simone, if what you're telling me is true, we can get justice for your mother. We can get her life back. I felt tears burning in my eyes. She doesn't even think she deserves a life anymore. They broke her. Then we'll help her remember who she is. But I need to warn you, this will get ugly. Your father and Veronica will fight back. They'll try to discredit you and your mother. They might threaten you. Are you prepared for that? I thought of my mother in that gray uniform, her hands raw from chemicals, living in a servant's room in her own home. I'm prepared. Good. Let's get started. I left the office feeling something I hadn't felt since arriving home. Hope. My father and Veronica had stolen 5 years from my mother. But I was going to make sure they paid for every single day. That evening I went back to the house. I rang the bell and this time my father answered. He looked older, grayer than I remembered. He also looked guilty. Simone. What are you doing here? I came to see Mom. Can I come in? He hesitated, then stepped aside. She's in the kitchen preparing dinner. I walked through the house that no longer felt like home. My mother was at the stove, still in her uniform. When she saw me, her face lit up. Simone. Did you eat? I made roast chicken. Mom, I need to talk to you. Can we go somewhere private? I can take a break. Let me check with Mrs. Patterson. You don't need to ask permission to talk to your own daughter. My father appeared in the doorway. Nicole, finish dinner first. Simone can wait in the living room. No, I said firmly. Mom, come with me. Now. My mother looked between us, confused and frightened. Finally, she untied her apron and followed me to the room that used to be her study, now converted into some kind of trophy room for Veronica's awards. Mom, I need you to listen to me carefully. I know you think you're sick, but I don't believe you are. I'm a doctor now, remember? Let me take you to see a specialist. Someone who can make sure you're getting the right care. Baby, I've seen doctors. They all said the same thing. One doctor said that. A doctor who lost his license for lying. Please, Mom. Do this for me. Let me take care of you the way you took care of me. She touched my face, tears in her eyes. You really think something's wrong with the diagnosis? I think someone lied to you. I think someone wanted to take everything from you, and they used a fake illness to do it. Please trust me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, I'll see your doctor. But if they say the same thing, you have to stop this. You have to let me stay here where I'm safe. Deal. But Mom, when the doctor tells you the truth, you have to believe them. Can you promise me that? I promise. As I left that night, I saw Veronica watching from an upstairs window. She looked angry. Good. She should be scared. Because I wasn't the little girl who left for medical school 5 years ago. I was Dr. Simone Patterson, and I was coming for everything they stole. Dr. Rebecca Santos specialized in geriatric psychiatry and had worked with Jonathan before on elder abuse cases. She agreed to evaluate my mother under the guise of a general health screening. I picked my mother up early the next morning. Veronica stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Where are you taking her? To a doctor's appointment. For her health. She has a doctor. She has a hack who lost his license. Now she has a real one. My mother climbed into my car looking nervous. As we drove away, she kept glancing back at the house. It's okay, Mom. We're just going to make sure you're healthy. What if Mrs. Patterson gets angry? Stop calling her that. Her name is Veronica, and she has no right to be angry about you seeing a doctor. Dr. Santos's office was warm and welcoming. She spent 3 hours with my mother doing cognitive tests, talking about her history, asking about her daily life. I waited outside pacing. When they finally came out, my mother looked exhausted but less anxious than before. Simone, can you join us? Dr. Santos asked. In her office, Dr. Santos pulled up her notes. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be very direct with you. There is nothing wrong with your mental capacity. You show no signs of dementia, psychosis, or any condition that would make you unable to care for yourself or make decisions. My mother stared at her. But Dr. Kemp said I was incompetent. Dr. Kemp was wrong. Or more likely, he was paid to write a false diagnosis. You've been over-medicated with antipsychotics and sedatives that you don't need. These medications are making you confused and compliant, but you're not mentally ill. But I signed papers. I agreed to everything. You were drugged and manipulated. None of what happened to you was your fault. Dr. Santos leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, I believe you are a victim of financial elder abuse. People you trusted took advantage of you and stole your assets. My mother started crying. My mother's hotels. She worked so hard to build that business. She made me promise to protect it, to grow it, to pass it to Simone someday. We're going to get it back, Mom, I said, holding her hand. All of it. Dr. Santos provided us with detailed documentation of her findings. Jonathan filed an emergency motion that afternoon, requesting the court to invalidate my mother's incompetency ruling and freeze all assets until a full investigation could be completed. While we waited for the hearing, I started digging deeper into exactly what had been stolen. Valley Crown Hotels had been my grandmother's legacy. She started with one small hotel in the 1970s and built it into a chain of 5 boutique hotels across the state. When she died, she left everything to my mother, who ran the business successfully for 2 decades. I found old financial records in a storage unit my mother had rented before everything fell apart. The hotels were profitable, bringing in steady income. The real estate alone was worth over $8 million. The business value was even higher. Then I found the sale documents. Preston Holdings LLC had purchased Valley Crown Hotels for $2 million. $2 million for a business worth at least $12 million. I called Jonathan immediately. They didn't just steal it. They sold it for a fraction of its value. To Veronica's brother. This is classic fraud. They declare your mother incompetent so she can't object. Then they sell her business to a family member for pennies on the dollar. I could hear the anger in his voice. I'm adding theft by conversion and fraudulent transfer to the charges. Can we get the hotels back? If the sale was fraudulent, we can void it. Preston would have to return the hotels or pay their current market value. Given that hotel values have increased in the past 4 years, that could be $15 million or more. Good. I want him to pay. There's something else you should know. I've been looking into your father's finances. He and Veronica are living way beyond what his consulting firm brings in. They're spending your mother's money like it's infinite. Where's the money from the hotel sale? That's what I'm trying to figure out. $2 million should have been deposited somewhere. But I can only see about $500,000 in their accounts, and that's mostly gone. Where did the rest go? I don't know yet. But I'll find it. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following week. Jonathan warned me that the judge might not rule in our favor immediately, but at least we could get the process started. I spent that time learning everything I could about my grandmother's hotels. I visited each location, introduced myself to the staff, and discovered that Preston had fired most of the longtime employees and replaced them with his own people. The hotels were still operating, but the personal touch that made them special was gone. One evening, I met with Mrs. Chin, who had been my grandmother's head housekeeper and had worked for my mother until the sale. Your mother loved those hotels like they were her children, Mrs. Chin said, tears in her eyes. When that man Preston bought them, he came in and told us we were all outdated. He brought in his own people and pushed out everyone who remembered your grandmother. It broke my heart. Did my mother seem sick before the sale? Sick? No. But she seemed scared. She kept saying Gregory was worried about her health, that the doctors said she needed to rest. Then one day she just stopped coming to work. We heard she'd been declared incompetent, and then Mr. Preston owned everything. Did you ever see Veronica before the sale? Oh yes. She started coming around about a year before everything happened. She was Gregory's secretary at first, but then she started acting like she was already family. She'd make comments about how your mother was too old-fashioned, how the business needed fresh ideas. We all knew something was wrong, but what could we do? You can testify for us. Tell the court what you saw. Anything for your mother. She was good to us. She treated us like family. I gathered testimonies from 6 former employees, all saying the same thing. My mother was competent, sharp, and successful until my father and Veronica convinced her she was sick. The night before the hearing, my mother called me. "Simone, your father came to my room tonight. He said if I testify against him, he'll make sure I never have anywhere to live. He said I'll end up on the street." My hands clenched into fists. "Mom, he's lying. He's scared because he knows we're going to win. You're going to be fine. I promise." "What if we lose? What if the judge doesn't believe us?" "Then we appeal. And we keep fighting until someone listens. But we're not going to lose. The truth is on our side." "I'm so tired, baby. Part of me wants to just accept that this is my life now." "Don't say that. You taught me to fight for what's right. You worked so hard to give me opportunities. Now let me fight for you." She was quiet, then said, "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." "I'm proud of you. We're going to get her hotels back, Mom. I promise." The next day we walked into the courthouse together. My mother was wearing clothes I'd bought her, not that gray uniform. She stood taller than she had in days. Veronica and my father were already there with their lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit. When Veronica saw us, she smirked. "This is a waste of everyone's time," she said loudly. "Nicole is clearly unwell. Look at her, dragging her daughter into her delusions." My mother grabbed my hand. I squeezed back. "Let them talk," I whispered. "The judge will see the truth." As we entered the courtroom, I knew this was just the beginning. But I also knew we were going to win. Because I wasn't just fighting for hotels or money. I was fighting for my mother's dignity, her legacy, and her future. And I would not stop until she had all of it back. Judge Raymond Phillips was known for being tough but fair. He'd presided over several high-profile elder abuse cases and had a reputation for not tolerating fraud. Jonathan had specifically requested him. The hearing room was smaller than I expected. We sat at one table, Veronica, my father, and their attorney Richard Chambers at another. My mother's hands trembled in her lap. Judge Phillips reviewed the emergency motion. "Mr. Pierce, you're requesting that this court invalidate a mental incompetency ruling from 5 years ago, freeze all assets currently held by Mr. and Mrs. Gregory Patterson, and grant temporary guardianship of Nicole Patterson to her daughter." "That's quite a lot." "Yes, Your Honor. We have compelling evidence that the original incompetency ruling was fraudulent, obtained through a corrupt physician who has since lost his medical license. We also have evidence of systematic financial exploitation of Mrs. Nicole Patterson by her ex-husband and his current wife." "Mr. Chambers, your response?" "Your Honor, this is a vindictive action by a daughter who hasn't been present in her mother's life for 5 years. Mrs. Nicole Patterson was properly evaluated and found to be unable to manage her own affairs. My clients have been caring for her out of the goodness of their hearts. This motion is nothing but harassment." Judge Phillips looked at my mother. "Mrs. Patterson, do you understand why you're here today?" My mother stood up slowly. "Yes, sir. My daughter believes I was lied to about being sick in my head. She thinks people stole my mother's business from me. What do you think?" "I think..." She paused, looking at me, then at my father. "I think I've been very confused for a long time. But I'm starting to remember things. I remember being smart enough to run a business. I remember making my own decisions. And I don't understand how I went from being that person to cleaning toilets. When was the last time you saw a psychiatrist?" "This week. Dr. Rebecca Santos. She said there's nothing wrong with me except being given medicine I don't need." Judge Phillips made a note. "I'm going to order an independent psychiatric evaluation. Until that's complete, I'm granting temporary guardianship to Simone Patterson and freezing all assets associated with Valley Crown Hotels or the sale thereof. No one is to transfer, sell, or hide any assets related to this case. We'll reconvene in 3 weeks." Chambers jumped up. "Your Honor, that's highly irregular. You're punishing my clients before any wrongdoing has been proven. I'm protecting a potentially vulnerable person until we establish the facts. If your clients have done nothing wrong, they have nothing to worry about." Court dismissed. Outside the courthouse, Veronica was furious. "You just cost us 3 weeks of business," she hissed at me. "I hope you're happy." "I'll be happy when you're in prison," I replied calmly. My father tried to approach my mother. "Nicole, please. You know I only wanted to protect you." Don't talk to my mother, I stepped between them. All communication goes through our attorney now. That afternoon, I moved my mother into a hotel suite near mine. She looked around the room like she was seeing the sky after years in a cave. I can stay here? Yes, Mom. This is yours. You don't have to ask anyone's permission. You don't have to clean anyone's floors. You just get to rest and heal. She sat on the bed and started crying. Not sad tears, but something else. Relief maybe. Or grief for the years she lost. Over the next few days, I watched my mother slowly come back to herself. The medication Dr. Kemp had prescribed cleared from her system. She started sleeping better, eating more, talking more. She began to remember things. I remember signing papers, she told me one evening. Gregory said they were for my protection, that if something happened to him, everything would be secure. I was so foggy from the pills. I just signed where he pointed. It's not your fault, Mom. I was weak. You were drugged and manipulated by someone you trusted. That's not weakness. That's abuse. Jonathan had been busy. He'd subpoenaed 5 years of financial records, deposed Dr. Kemp, and tracked down everyone who'd worked with my mother before the incompetency ruling. Dr. Kemp cracked immediately, Jonathan told me over coffee. He admitted your father paid him $50,000 to diagnose your mother as mentally incompetent. He's willing to testify in exchange for immunity from criminal charges. What about Preston? Veronica's brother? He's claiming he purchased the hotels in good faith and had no knowledge of any fraud. But I found something interesting. He paid $2 million for the hotels, but the money didn't go to your mother or father. It went to an LLC called Magnolia Investments. What's Magnolia Investments? A company owned by Veronica, created 2 weeks before the hotel sale. The money went straight to her and she's been using it to fund her lifestyle. New cars, designer clothes, vacations. She spent almost all of it. So she planned this from the beginning. Looks that way. She convinced your father to help her steal from your mother, probably with promises of the life they're living now. Your father gets to pretend he's successful, she gets to play rich housewife, and they both benefit from your mother's inheritance. Can we prove this in court? With the financial records, Dr. Kemp's testimony, and witness statements from people who knew your mother? Absolutely. But there's something else. He pulled out another document. I found the trust your father told you about. The one supposedly protecting your mother's money? It doesn't exist, I guessed. Worse. It exists, but it's empty. Your father created it, transferred nothing into it, and uses it as proof that he's managing your mother's assets responsibly. It's another layer of fraud. I felt sick. He thought of everything. Almost everything. He didn't count on you coming home and asking questions. Most families don't question these situations. Adult children either don't notice or don't want to get involved. You asking questions started unraveling their whole scheme. The independent psychiatric evaluation confirmed what Dr. Santos had said. My mother had no mental illness and never had. The evaluator, Dr. Howard Chong, was even more direct. Mrs. Patterson was the victim of medical fraud and systematic psychological abuse designed to make her believe she was incompetent. This is one of the clearest cases of exploitation I've seen in 30 years of practice. Armed with this evidence, Jonathan filed a comprehensive lawsuit. Fraud, theft by conversion, elder abuse, conspiracy, and emotional distress. He also notified the district attorney's office about potential criminal charges. Meanwhile, I focused on getting my mother ready to face what was coming. They're going to say terrible things about you in court, I warned her. They'll try to make it seem like you were sick, that you couldn't run your business. But I did run it. For 20 years. I know. And we have people ready to testify to that. But you need to be prepared for them to attack you. She was quiet for a moment. Simone, I need to tell you something. When Gregory first started seeing Veronica, I knew. I saw messages on his phone. I confronted him and he said it was nothing, that she was just a friend. I believed him because I wanted to. I didn't want to admit my marriage was falling apart. Mom, people have affairs. That doesn't mean you deserve this. I know. But I was weak then too. I should have left him immediately. Instead, I tried to make it work. And while I was trying to save my marriage, he was planning how to take everything from me. That's not weakness. That's love. You loved him, so you trusted him. He used that love as a weapon. But we're going to make sure he never hurts anyone like this again. I started working at the local hospital, establishing my medical career while managing my mother's case. The other doctors welcomed me and I found satisfaction in helping patients. But every evening, I returned to planning strategy with Jonathan. We tracked down my mother's old business associates, her friends, anyone who could speak to her character and competency. The picture that emerged was of a smart, capable woman who had been systematically isolated and destroyed by people she trusted. One friend, Patricia Woodson, cried when she saw my mother. "Nicole, we all thought you were sick. Gregory told everyone you needed privacy, that visitors upset you. We wanted to help, but he cut us all off." "He isolated her," I explained. "It's a classic abuse tactic. Remove the support system so the victim has no one to turn to." Patricia agreed to testify, as did 7 other friends whom my father had pushed away. The case was building. But as Jonathan warned me, Veronica and my father weren't going to go down without a fight. The first sign of trouble came when someone broke into my hotel room. Nothing was taken, but my papers were scattered, my laptop left open. A warning. The second sign was a letter delivered to the hotel. "No return address," typed message, "drop the case or face consequences." I showed it to Jonathan. "We need to report this to the police," he said. "Will it help?" "It'll create a record. And it shows they're desperate. Innocent people don't threaten witnesses." "Good. Let them be desperate. It'll make them sloppy." "Simone, you need to be careful. Your mother too. These people have already proven they're willing to destroy lives to get what they want." "I'm not scared of them." "Maybe you should be. At least a little." But I wasn't scared. I was angry. And I was going to use that anger to take back everything they stole and make sure they paid for every single day my mother spent believing she was worthless. The trial was set for 6 weeks away. We had 6 weeks to prepare for battle. And I was going to make sure we were ready. 3 weeks before the trial, Veronica hosted a charity gala at my mother's former home. The invitation arrived at my hotel room, forwarded from my old address. "You're cordially invited to the 5th Annual Magnolia Hill Foundation Gala, hosted by Veronica and Gregory Patterson." Jonathan called me immediately. "Tell me you're not thinking about going." "I'm absolutely thinking about going." "Simone, that's exactly what she wants. She's trying to provoke you. Then let's give her what she wants. You said they're living beyond their means. A charity gala is the perfect place to see exactly how they're spending my mother's money. I'm coming with you. I'm bringing my mother too." "That's a terrible idea. They humiliated her for 5 years. She deserves to walk into that house as a guest, not a maid." The night of the gala, I bought my mother a beautiful dress, deep blue that brought out her eyes. I had her hair professionally styled. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "I look like I used to," she whispered. "You look like yourself," I corrected. "The woman you've always been." We arrived with Jonathan. The house was transformed, decorated for the party. Guests in expensive clothes filled the rooms. Servers carried champagne. A string quartet played in the corner. Veronica saw us immediately. She was wearing a diamond necklace that probably cost more than most people's cars. Well. The Pattersons decided to grace us with their presence. She air-kissed near my cheeks, her smile venomous. "And Nicole, you look so different out of uniform. Almost like a real person." "Careful," Jonathan said quietly. "I'm recording everything." "Record away," Veronica laughed. "This is my home, my party. I can say what I want." My father appeared, looking uncomfortable. He wouldn't meet my mother's eyes. "Veronica, maybe we should." "Should what, darling? Be nice to the woman who's trying to steal our livelihood? To the daughter who's turned her back on family?" "Family?" I kept my voice level. "You mean the family you destroyed?" "I didn't destroy anything. I saved it. Your mother was running that business into the ground. She was spending money on foolish things, making terrible decisions. Someone had to take control before she lost everything." "That's a lie," my mother said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in weeks. "I ran that business successfully for 20 years. "You think you did. But you were already sick, Nicole. You just didn't know it yet." Preston appeared, a tall man with Veronica's same cold eyes. "Is there a problem?" "No problem," Veronica said sweetly. "Just catching up with family." The evening continued and I watched carefully. Veronica introduced donors, talking about the foundation's work helping less fortunate families. She didn't mention that the money came from stealing my mother's inheritance. I noticed something else too. Several guests seemed to know my mother, looked at her with confusion and sympathy. Whispered conversations followed us. "Isn't that Nicole Patterson? I thought she was sick? She looks fine to me." During dinner, Veronica stood to give a speech. "Thank you all for coming tonight. The Magnolia Hill Foundation has been my passion project, helping families in crisis. I know something about families in crisis. My husband's first wife struggled with mental illness, and we've been caring for her ever since. It's taught me so much about compassion and sacrifice. My mother's hand tightened on mine under the table. That's why tonight's cause is so important to me. We're raising money for families dealing with mental health crises, to make sure no one has to face these challenges alone. The irony was stunning. She was using my mother's stolen money to throw a party about compassion while my mother had been cleaning her toilets. When the speech ended, I stood up. I'd like to say something. Veronica's smile froze. This isn't really the time. It's the perfect time. Since you're raising money for mental health awareness, let me share a story. I looked around the room at the confused guests. 5 years ago, a woman was declared mentally incompetent by a doctor who was paid to lie. Her husband used that false diagnosis to divorce her, take all her assets, and force her to work as a maid in her own home. Murmurs spread through the room. That woman is my mother, Nicole Patterson. And the person who did this to her is standing right there. I pointed at Veronica, who had gone pale. You're insane, she hissed. Gregory, do something. The hotels you're all admiring? I continued. They were built by my grandmother and managed successfully by my mother for 2 decades. Until they were stolen through fraud and sold for a fraction of their value to Veronica's brother. The money from that sale? It paid for this house, those diamonds, this party. All of it bought with my mother's inheritance. That's defamatory. Chambers appeared from somewhere. You're going to be sued for slander. Truth is a defense against slander, Mr. Chambers. Everything I just said can be proven in court. Which is where we'll be in 3 weeks. Preston stepped forward. I purchased those hotels legally. From a woman who'd been declared incompetent through fraud. Which makes the sale void. Veronica found her voice. Get out. Get out of my house. Your house. My mother stood up, and there was something in her voice I hadn't heard in years. Power. This is my house. You're a thief who's been playing dress up in my life. But the game is over. You're a broken, pathetic woman who should be grateful I let you stay here. That's it, Jonathan said, his phone still recording. Thank you for that. The judge will love it. Guests were leaving, some quickly, others pausing to talk to my mother. Several mentioned they'd had doubts about the story Gregory had told, that my mother had never seemed sick when they knew her. Patricia Woodson hugged my mother tightly. I knew something was wrong. I'm so sorry I didn't push harder to see you. As we left, I heard Veronica screaming at my father. This is your fault. You said she wouldn't come back. You said she'd stay in medical school and forget about everything. In the car, my mother was shaking, but not with fear. With anger. She used my money to throw a party about compassion. She wore diamonds bought with my inheritance while pretending to be a charitable person. That recording will help our case, Jonathan said. She basically admitted to everything. Did you see their faces? My mother almost laughed. Their friends, their donors, all looking at them like they were criminals. Because they are criminals, I said. And now everyone knows it. The next day, 3 major donors to the Magnolia Hill Foundation called to withdraw their support. 2 board members resigned. The story started appearing in local news. Local woman accuses socialite of elder abuse and fraud. Veronica tried to control the narrative, giving an interview claiming my mother was confused and I was manipulating her. But the evidence was mounting and public opinion was turning. My father called my phone 20 times. I finally answered. Simone, please. We need to talk. We'll talk in court. You don't understand. Veronica, she's not the person I thought she was. She convinced me Nicole was sick. She said we were helping. You knew exactly what you were doing. You paid Dr. Kemp. You transferred the assets. You isolated Mom from her friends. Don't pretend you're a victim. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I still love your mother. Then you should have protected her instead of destroying her. If I testify against Veronica, if I tell the truth, will you and Nicole forgive me? That's not how this works, Dad. You can't betray someone for 5 years and then expect forgiveness because you got caught. Please. She's threatening me. She says if I turn on her, she'll make sure I lose everything. You don't have anything to lose. It was never yours to begin with. I hung up. He's trying to make a deal, I told Jonathan. Let him try. His testimony would be valuable, but we don't need it. We have enough without him. The trial date approached. Our case was solid. The evidence was overwhelming. But I knew the real battle was just beginning. Because people like Veronica didn't go down easily. And she'd already proven she was willing to destroy lives to get what she wanted. But this time she picked the wrong family to destroy. The courtroom was packed on the first day of trial. News of the case had spread and reporters filled the back rows. Judge Phillips had already warned that he wouldn't tolerate any disruptions. Jonathan stood to give his opening statement. Your Honor, this case is about betrayal. Nicole Patterson built a life, raised a daughter, and ran a successful business for 20 years. She trusted her husband, Gregory Patterson, to support her. Instead, he conspired with his mistress, now his wife, Veronica Patterson, to systematically destroy Nicole's life and steal everything she owned. He presented our timeline. The affair starting shortly after I left for medical school. The sudden incompetency evaluation by Dr. Kemp. The rushed divorce. The transfer of assets. The sale of the hotels to Preston for far below market value. The evidence will show that every step of this process was calculated to take advantage of a vulnerable woman who trusted the wrong people. Nicole Patterson was drugged, isolated, and convinced she was mentally ill when she was perfectly healthy. She spent 5 years working as a maid in her own home, believing she deserved nothing, while the defendants lived lavishly on her stolen inheritance. Chambers stood for his opening statement. Your Honor, this is a story about a daughter who abandoned her mentally ill mother for 5 years and now wants to blame everyone else for her absence. Nicole Patterson was properly diagnosed and properly cared for. My clients have been saints, providing Nicole with a home and purpose when she had nothing. Now they're being repaid with false accusations and harassment. Judge Phillips made notes. Mr. Pierce, call your first witness. The plaintiff calls Dr. Rebecca Santos. Dr. Santos took the stand and methodically destroyed Dr. Kemp's diagnosis. She explained the tests she'd performed, the interviews she'd conducted, and her conclusion. Mrs. Patterson shows no signs of mental incompetence, dementia, psychosis, or any condition that would prevent her from managing her own affairs. She was, however, significantly over-medicated with drugs that cause confusion, memory loss, and passivity. In your expert opinion, was the original diagnosis correct? Absolutely not. Mrs. Patterson was never mentally incompetent. Chambers cross-examined. But couldn't her condition have improved over 5 years? Conditions like the one Dr. Kemp described don't improve spontaneously. They progress. If Mrs. Patterson was truly incompetent 5 years ago, she would be worse now, not better. The fact that she's completely lucid after stopping the unnecessary medications proves she was never ill. Could she have been sick 5 years ago and gotten better? Not from the conditions Dr. Kemp diagnosed. His diagnosis claimed she had progressive dementia and psychotic features. Those don't resolve on their own. The next witness was Dr. Chong, who confirmed everything Dr. Santos said. Then Jonathan called Dr. Harold Kemp himself. Kemp looked terrible. His medical license was gone and he faced potential criminal charges. He'd already agreed to testify truthfully in exchange for immunity. Dr. Kemp, did you perform a thorough evaluation of Nicole Patterson 5 years ago? No. Did you diagnose her with mental incompetency based on medical evidence? No. Then why did you sign a document declaring her mentally incompetent? Kemp's voice was barely audible. Gregory Patterson paid me $50,000 to sign the document. Gasps filled the courtroom. Judge Phillips banged his gavel. Did you ever actually examine Mrs. Patterson? I met with her once for about 15 minutes. Gregory had already given her sedatives. She was drowsy and confused. I asked her a few basic questions, then signed the paperwork Gregory had prepared. Were you aware that your diagnosis would be used to take away Mrs. Patterson's legal rights and transfer her assets to others? Yes. That was the point. Chambers tried to recover on cross-examination. Dr. Kemp, haven't you lost your medical license for fraud? Yes. So why should this court believe anything you say? Because I'm already facing criminal charges. Lying now won't help me. I'm telling the truth because it's the only thing I have left. Judge Phillips looked at Chambers. Any further questions? No, Your Honor. We broke for lunch. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us. Dr. Patterson, how does it feel to hear that testimony? What do you want to say to your father? Jonathan guided us past them. Don't say anything. Let the evidence speak. The afternoon session brought financial experts who testified about the hotel sale. A forensic accountant, James Wu, explained what he'd found. The Valley Crown hotels were conservatively worth $12 to $15 million at the time of sale. They were sold to Preston Holdings LLC for $2 million. The money from that sale went directly to Magnolia Investments, a company owned solely by Veronica Patterson. Over the next 4 years, that money was spent on luxury items, travel, and maintaining a lifestyle the defendants couldn't otherwise afford. Is there any legitimate reason for such a low sale price? None. Market comparables show similar hotel properties selling for much higher values. This sale only makes sense if the goal was to quickly transfer assets to a specific buyer at the expense of the actual owner. Chambers attacked on cross-examination. Mr. Wu, isn't it possible the hotels were simply overvalued? Possible but not probable. 5 independent appraisals from that time period all valued the properties between $11 and $15 million. Preston Holdings has since valued them at $18 million in their corporate filings. So Preston knows the hotels are actually worth far more than what he paid for them? Correct. The next witness was Patricia Woodson, my mother's friend. I knew Nicole for 15 years before all this happened. She was sharp, funny, successful. Then suddenly Gregory said she was sick and couldn't have visitors. He cut all of us off. We tried to call to visit, but he said we were upsetting her. Did Nicole ever seem mentally ill to you? Never. Not once. She ran a complex business, managed employees, negotiated contracts. She was one of the smartest people I knew. One by one, friends and former employees testified. They all said the same thing. My mother was competent, successful, and suddenly isolated by my father and Veronica. Mrs. Chin, the former head housekeeper, cried on the stand. Nicole treated us like family. When my son was sick, she paid his medical bills. When I needed time off, she never questioned it. She remembered all our birthdays. Then Mr. Preston bought the hotels and fired most of us. He said we were too old, too set in our ways. It broke Nicole's heart. Did you ever see Nicole after the sale? Once. I went to the house to try to see her. A blonde woman answered the door and said Nicole was busy. Then I saw her through the window wearing a maid's uniform, cleaning. I couldn't believe it. I tried to talk to her, but the blonde woman, Veronica, told me to leave or she'd call the police. By the end of the first week, the pattern was clear. My father and Veronica had systematically isolated my mother, drugged her, convinced her she was incompetent, stolen her assets, and forced her into servitude. But Chambers wasn't giving up. When it was the defense's turn, he called Veronica to the stand. She was dressed conservatively, her hair pulled back, trying to look sympathetic. Mrs. Patterson, please tell the court about your relationship with Nicole. I tried to help her. When Gregory told me about her illness, I suggested she come live with us. I knew it would be hard, but I wanted to do the right thing. And why did you have Nicole work around the house? Her therapist suggested it. He said having tasks would give her a sense of purpose and help with her depression. Did you ever mistreat Nicole? Never. I cared for her like she was my own family. Jonathan stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Patterson, you stated you cared for Nicole like family. Did your family members also live in servants' quarters and wear uniforms? That was Nicole's choice. We offered her better accommodations. Did you pay Nicole for her work? Veronica hesitated. We provided room and board. So you had a woman worth millions of dollars cleaning your toilets for free? She wasn't worth millions anymore. The money was in trust. What trust? Can you provide documentation of this trust? Gregory handled that. There is no trust, is there, Mrs. Patterson? There never was. That was just another lie. I was told there was a trust. By your husband, who you conspired with to steal from his wife? Objection. Chambers jumped up. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Pierce asked questions. Mrs. Patterson, when did your romantic relationship with Gregory begin? After his divorce. Not before? Not while he was still married to Nicole? We were friends. Friends who communicated privately, who met outside of work, who planned a future together while Gregory was still married? We didn't plan anything. Then how did you end up owning all of Nicole's assets less than a year after the divorce? I don't know. Gregory handled the legal matters. You don't know how you became a millionaire? Objection. Withdrawn. Mrs. Patterson, at the charity gala 3 weeks ago, what did you say to Nicole? Veronica went pale, remembering the recording. I don't recall. Let me refresh your memory. Jonathan played the audio. Veronica's voice filled the courtroom. You're a broken, pathetic woman who should be grateful I let you stay here. Does that sound like someone who cared for Nicole like family? Veronica didn't answer. When my father took the stand, he looked defeated. Chambers tried to frame him as a confused man who made mistakes. But on cross-examination, Jonathan dismantled him. Mr. Patterson, you paid Dr. Kemp $50,000 to falsely diagnose your wife. Where did that money come from? I borrowed it. From whom? Veronica. So Veronica gave you money to pay for a false diagnosis that would allow you to steal your wife's assets and give them to Veronica? It wasn't like that. Then explain how it was. I thought Nicole was sick. I wanted to help her. By divorcing her, taking everything she owned and making her your maid? I made mistakes. These weren't mistakes, Mr. Patterson. These were crimes. The trial continued for another week. More witnesses, more evidence, more testimony about the systematic destruction of my mother's life. Finally, it was time for closing arguments. Jonathan stood before the judge. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Nicole Patterson was the victim of a cruel and calculated conspiracy. She lost her marriage, her home, her business, and 5 years of her life. The defendants must be held accountable for every dollar they stole and every day they stole it. Chambers tried one last time. Your Honor, my clients made some questionable choices, but they believe they were helping. This should be a civil matter about money, not a criminal case about fraud. Judge Phillips looked tired. I'll have my ruling in 1 week. Until then, the asset freeze remains in place. Court is adjourned. As we left the courthouse, my mother looked at me. What happens now? Now we wait. And we trust that justice will be served. What if it isn't? Then we appeal. We keep fighting until we win. But I believed we would win. Because the truth was on our side. And for once, the truth was going to matter. The week waiting for Judge Phillips's ruling was the longest of my life. My mother spent the time in therapy, processing everything that had happened to her. I watched her transform day by day. I keep remembering things, she told me over breakfast one morning. Little moments where Gregory was manipulating me. Times when I questioned what was happening, but he convinced me I was confused. That's called gaslighting. He made you doubt your own reality. There was this day about 6 months after you left for school. I found messages on his phone from Veronica. Love messages. I confronted him and he said I was being paranoid. He said the stress of you being gone was making me imagine things. He suggested I see a doctor. Dr. Kemp. Yes. Gregory scheduled the appointment. He went with me. I remember being so tired that day. I could barely keep my eyes open. Now I know why. He drugged you before the appointment. I told Dr. Kemp I was worried Gregory was cheating. Dr. Kemp wrote it in his notes as a paranoid delusion. Then he prescribed medication that made everything worse. She looked at me with clear eyes. They planned it all, Simone. Every step. I know, Mom. I kept waiting for you to call. But Gregory said you were busy with school, that I shouldn't bother you. He screened my calls, deleted my messages. He isolated me from everyone, including my own daughter. Guilt washed over me. I should have called more. I should have come home. No. She grabbed my hand. You were building your future. That's what I wanted for you. This isn't your fault. It's theirs. She was right, but it didn't ease the guilt completely. I'd been so focused on medical school, on proving myself, that I'd accepted my father's explanations too easily. When did you realize something was really wrong? I asked. The day I signed the divorce papers. I was so medicated I could barely hold the pen. Gregory kept saying it was for my protection, that I'd be taken care of. I remember asking about the hotels and he said they'd be in trust for me. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because the alternative was that the man I'd loved for 25 years was destroying me. You couldn't have known. I should have known. I should have fought harder. Mom, you were drugged and manipulated. You did nothing wrong. She was quiet for a moment. The worst part wasn't losing the money or the business. It was losing myself. I started to believe I was worthless. That I deserved to scrub floors and eat leftovers and sleep in that tiny room. I convinced myself I was lucky they let me stay. That was their goal. To break you down so completely that you wouldn't question anything. Well, they failed. Because I'm not broken anymore. I saw the truth of it in her eyes. My mother was coming back stronger than before. That evening we met with Jonathan to prepare for the ruling. Judge Phillips could rule in our favor on everything, which would void the incompetency declaration, the divorce, and the property transfers. Or he could rule partially, voiding some but not all. Or worst case, he could rule against us. What are the chances of that? I asked. Low. The evidence is overwhelming. But judges can be unpredictable. If he rules in our favor, what happens to Veronica and Gregory? Civil penalties, definitely. They'll owe Nicole everything they took plus damages. Criminal charges are a separate matter, but the district attorney has already indicated interest in prosecution. My mother spoke up. I don't care about revenge. I just want my life back. This isn't revenge, Mom. It's justice. And it will help other people too, Jonathan added. If we win this case, it sets a precedent for other elder abuse victims. It shows that courts will take these cases seriously. The day of the ruling arrived. We dressed carefully and headed to the courthouse. The courtroom was even more packed than during the trial. Veronica and my father sat with Chambers, both looking tense. Judge Phillips entered and we all stood. Please be seated. I've reviewed all the evidence presented in this case and I've reached my decision. My mother's hand found mine. First, regarding the mental incompetency ruling from 5 years ago. Based on the testimony of Dr. Santos, Dr. Chang, and Dr. Kemp's admission that he was paid to provide a false diagnosis, I find that the original ruling was obtained through fraud. The incompetency declaration is hereby voided retroactively. Relief flooded through me. Second, regarding the divorce. Because the divorce was based entirely on the fraudulent incompetency ruling, and because Nicole Patterson was not capable of understanding what she was signing due to being over-medicated, I find the divorce was invalid from its inception. Gregory and Nicole Patterson are still legally married. My father's head dropped into his hands. Veronica looked furious. Third, regarding the property transfers. All transfers of property, assets, and business interests from Nicole Patterson to Gregory Patterson or Veronica Patterson are void. This includes the family home, bank accounts, and any other assets that originally belonged to Nicole Patterson. Fourth, regarding the sale of Valley Crown Hotels. Because the sale was conducted by parties who had fraudulently obtained control of the business, the sale to Preston Holdings LLC is void. Preston Holdings must return the properties to Nicole Patterson or pay their current fair market value, which I assess at $18 million based on Preston's own corporate valuations. Preston shot up from his seat. Your Honor, that's impossible. I've invested millions in those properties. You purchased stolen property, Mr. Preston. Your investments are your own problem. You should have done proper due diligence. Fifth, regarding damages. I award Nicole Patterson compensatory damages of $5 million for emotional distress, lost income, and the deliberate infliction of harm. I also award punitive damages of $2 million against Gregory and Veronica Patterson jointly, to send a message that elder abuse and financial exploitation will not be tolerated. Veronica was crying now, not sad tears but angry ones. Finally, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. The fraud here was extensive and deliberate. Criminal charges are warranted. He looked at my mother. Mrs. Patterson, I want you to know that what was done to you was not your fault. You trusted people who betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. I hope this ruling helps you reclaim your life and your dignity. Thank you, Your Honor, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Mrs. Patterson, how do you feel? What will you do now? Do you have anything to say to your husband? My mother stopped and looked at the cameras. I spent 5 years believing I was worthless. 5 years thinking I deserved nothing. Today, a judge told me what I should have known all along. I deserved everything. I deserved respect, honesty, and love. I didn't get those things from the people who should have given them to me. But I'm going to make sure other people in my situation get the help they need. What does that mean? It means I'm going to use my experience to help others. No one should have to go through what I went through. As we drove away, my mother looked lighter than I'd seen her in years. I thought I'd feel angrier, she said. But I just feel free. The anger might come later. Maybe. But right now, I just want to move forward. What's the first thing you want to do? She smiled. I want to visit my hotels. The ones your grandmother built. I want to see what they've done to them and I want to make them beautiful again. That sounds perfect. And Simone? Thank you. Thank you for coming home. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for believing me when I couldn't believe in myself. Always, Mom. Always. Over the next few days, the legal machinery moved quickly. Veronica and Gregory were ordered to vacate the house within 30 days. All bank accounts were frozen and transferred back to my mother's name. The hotels would be returned within 60 days, or Preston would owe $18 million he didn't have. My mother started making plans. She hired a new management team for the hotels. She met with architects about renovations. She reached out to former employees who'd been fired by Preston, offering them their jobs back. And slowly, day by day, she became herself again. Not the broken woman in a maid's uniform, but the strong, successful woman she'd always been. One evening we were looking at photos of the hotels when my mother said, "You know what I want to do? I want to create a foundation. A real foundation, not a fake one like Veronica's. Something to help people who've been victims of financial abuse." That's a great idea. I could use the punitive damages to fund it. Turn something terrible into something good. Grandma would love that. She would. She always said money was just a tool. What matters is what you build with it. My mother was building something beautiful from the ashes of what had been taken from her. And I was so proud of her I could barely speak. The next chapter of our lives was beginning. And this time we were writing it ourselves. Veronica did not go quietly. The day after the ruling she filed an appeal. Chambers argued that Judge Phillips had overstepped, that voiding the divorce was too extreme. It's a stalling tactic, Jonathan explained. The appeal will fail, but it buys them time. Time for what? To hide assets, to make plans, to cause trouble. He was right. Within a week, strange things started happening. Someone called the state medical board claiming I was practicing medicine without proper credentials. The complaint was anonymous but detailed, suggesting I'd falsified my residency paperwork. The board opened an investigation. It's harassment, Jonathan said. Your credentials are perfect. But they're trying to distract you and damage your reputation. Then someone filed a complaint with the police claiming my mother had stolen jewelry from the house. Veronica's jewelry. The jewelry was purchased with Mom's money, I pointed out. I know. But they're making you defend yourselves on multiple fronts, hoping something sticks or you give up. My mother's new therapist received a letter threatening her license if she didn't retract her testimony. She reported it to the police but was clearly shaken. They're desperate, I said. That's good. Desperate people are dangerous, Jonathan warned. Be careful. I started noticing cars following me. Nothing overtly threatening, but the same vehicles appeared too often to be coincidence. I documented everything and reported it to the police. Preston tried a different approach. He called my mother directly, which violated the court order about contact. Nicole, we can work this out, he said. I'll give you $3 million for the hotels. That's more than fair. You can take the money and walk away. The court said $18 million or return the properties. Be reasonable. I've put 4 years of work into those hotels. I've invested money time. $3 million is generous. The court's ruling is final. Nicole, think about this. If you push this, I'll tie it up in appeals for years. You'll spend everything on legal fees and end up with nothing. My mother handed the phone to Jonathan. Mr. Preston, this is Nicole's attorney. Any further contact will result in contempt charges. The ruling is final. Return the hotels or pay $18 million. Those are your options. Preston tried another tactic. He approached Mrs. Chin and other former employees, offering them money to recant their testimony. He said he'd give me $50,000 to say I lied, Mrs. Chin told us. That Nicole was actually sick and I just testified to help you. What did you say? I told him to go to hell. Nicole was good to me. I won't betray her for money. But not everyone was as loyal. One former employee, a man who'd been fired for stealing, agreed to sign a statement saying my mother had been incompetent before the sale. Preston tried to use this in his appeal. Jonathan demolished it in court. Your Honor, this witness was fired for theft and has a criminal record for fraud. He's being paid by the defendant to lie. This is exactly the kind of witness tampering and evidence fabrication that got Preston into this situation in the first place. The appeal was denied. Veronica tried to appeal to my father's sense of honor, not realizing he'd already turned on her. Gregory had been meeting with prosecutors, negotiating a deal. In exchange for testifying against Veronica and Preston, he would face reduced charges. Your father is trying to save himself, Jonathan told us. He's claiming Veronica masterminded everything and he was just a pawn. Is that true? My mother asked. Partly. But Gregory was a willing participant. He knew what he was doing. Will the prosecutors accept his deal? Probably. His testimony will strengthen the criminal case against Veronica. The day my father's deal was announced, Veronica showed up at our hotel. Security called me before letting her up. Mrs. Patterson is here. She says it's urgent. Don't let her in. Call the police. But Veronica was already in the lobby shouting, Nicole, I know you're here. We need to talk. I went down with hotel security. Veronica looked terrible. Her hair was messy, her makeup smeared. This wasn't the polished socialite from the gala. You need to leave, I said calmly. Your father is lying about me. I never forced him to do anything. He wanted to take your mother's money. It was his idea. That's for the courts to decide. He's making me the villain because he's a coward. Tell Nicole that. Tell her Gregory planned everything and used me. Even if that were true, which I doubt, you still went along with it. You still wore diamonds bought with my mother's money while she scrubbed your floors. I gave her a home. You gave her nothing. You took everything. I'll fight this. I'll appeal again. I'll tie this up for years if I have to. Do whatever you want. We're not afraid of you anymore." Security escorted her out. She was screaming threats until they put her in a taxi. That evening my mother was quiet. "Do you think Gregory is telling the truth? That Veronica planned everything? Does it matter? They both participated. They both hurt you. I just want to understand how the man I loved for 25 years could do this to me. Maybe you never really knew him. Maybe he was always capable of this and you just never saw it. That's the part that hurts the most. Questioning everything we had together. Wondering if any of it was real. Some of it was probably real, Mom. People change. He changed. Or maybe stress and fear brought out his worst qualities. Either way, he made his choices. I keep thinking about when we were young. We had nothing but we were happy. When did having something become more important than being good? I don't know. But you're still good. That's what matters." The criminal trial was set for 3 months later. In the meantime, the deadline for Preston to return the hotels or pay approached. He didn't have $18 million. His appeals had failed. The properties would have to be returned. 2 weeks before the transfer date, Preston made one last desperate move. He tried to burn down the flagship hotel. The fire was caught quickly, and investigators found evidence of arson. Preston was arrested at the scene. He thought if he destroyed the hotels he wouldn't have to give them back, Jonathan explained. But arson while facing civil judgment just adds criminal charges. He could have killed people. The hotel had guests. Which is why he's facing attempted murder charges in addition to arson. Preston's arrest seemed to break something in Veronica. She stopped filing motions, stopped appealing, stopped fighting. Her lawyer withdrew from the case. "She's out of money," Jonathan said. "And out of options." The day the hotels were officially transferred back to my mother, we stood in the lobby of the flagship property. It had been renovated by Preston in a cold, modern style that had removed all its character. "We'll restore it," my mother said. "Make it beautiful again the way Grandma intended." Mrs. Chin and the other former employees returned, brought back by my mother with raises and new titles. "Welcome home," my mother told them. "Let's rebuild this together." Over the next weeks, the hotels began to transform. My mother worked tirelessly, meeting with designers, approving plans, making decisions with the clarity and confidence she'd lost 5 years ago. "I forgot how much I love this," she admitted. "Building something, creating experiences for people. It's not about the money. It's about making something beautiful. Grandma would be so proud of you." "I hope so. I feel like I let her down, losing everything she built." "You didn't lose it. It was stolen from you. And now you got it back. That's not failure. That's victory." The criminal trial approached. Gregory would testify against Veronica in exchange for his plea deal. Preston faced serious charges for arson. And Veronica would face justice for everything she'd done. But for my mother and me, the real victory was already won. She had her life back. She had her dignity back. She had her purpose back. Everything else was just paperwork. The criminal trial began on a cold morning in November. The courthouse was even more packed than before, with news cameras and reporters filling every available space. This wasn't just a local story anymore. National media had picked it up as an example of elder abuse and financial exploitation. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Rachel Foster, laid out a devastating case. She showed the timeline of the conspiracy, the payments to Dr. Kemp, the transfers of assets, the systematic abuse of my mother. "This wasn't a mistake," Rachel said in her opening statement. "This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated, multi-year conspiracy to steal millions of dollars from a vulnerable woman. The defendants planned it, executed it, and then celebrated their success while their victim cleaned their floors." Gregory testified first, per his plea agreement. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by guilt or fear or both. "Veronica approached me about 6 months after Simone left for medical school," he said. "She said Nicole had always been too soft with money, that the business could be worth so much more in the right hands. She convinced me Nicole was holding us back." "Whose idea was it to have Mrs. Patterson declared incompetent?" Rachel asked. "Veronica's. She said it was the cleanest way to take control. She knew a doctor who would sign the paperwork for the right price." "And you agreed to this?" He paused. "Yes, I agreed. I told myself I was doing it for Nicole's protection, but I knew what I was really doing. I was taking everything from her so Veronica and I could have the life we wanted." "Why did you have Mrs. Patterson work as a maid?" That was Veronica's idea too. She said Nicole needed to earn her keep. I should have stopped it. I should have done a lot of things differently. On cross-examination, Veronica's new attorney, a public defender named Thomas Grant, tried to undermine Gregory's testimony. Mr. Patterson, isn't it true that you're testifying against my client to save yourself? Yes. So you're admitting you'd say anything to get a lighter sentence? No. I'm telling the truth because it's the only decent thing I've done in 5 years. The most powerful testimony came from my mother. She took the stand wearing a professional suit, her head held high. Rachel walked her through everything. The confusion after I left for school. The medications that made her foggy. The papers Gregory convinced her to sign. The day she realized she was no longer the owner of her home. Mrs. Patterson, when did you realize you'd been deceived? When my daughter came home and asked questions no one else had asked. She looked at me and saw someone who didn't belong in a maid's uniform. Everyone else had accepted it, but Simone knew something was wrong. How did it feel to be treated as a servant in your own home? It felt like I deserved it. They convinced me I was mentally ill, that I was lucky they let me stay. I actually believed I should be grateful to clean their toilets. Her voice broke. I believed I deserved nothing. What do you want this jury to understand? That this can happen to anyone. I was successful, educated, confident. And they still destroyed me. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone who trusts the wrong people. When Veronica took the stand in her own defense, she tried to present herself as a victim too. Gregory manipulated me, she claimed. He told me Nicole was truly sick, that we were helping her. I didn't know the diagnosis was fake. But you knew you were spending money that wasn't yours, Rachel countered. Gregory said it was community property from their marriage. Mrs. Patterson, you created Magnolia Investments specifically to receive the hotel sale money. That company was in your name only. You knew exactly what you were doing. I was trying to protect assets. From whom? From Nicole, the rightful owner? From Nicole's poor decisions. What poor decisions? Her business was successful for 20 years. The only poor decision was trusting your husband. Rachel pulled up photo after photo. Veronica in designer clothes on luxury vacations at expensive restaurants. All of it paid for with my mother's money while my mother scrubbed floors. You spent $2 million in 4 years. On what? Living expenses. A $60,000 necklace is a living expense? I deserve nice things. With someone else's money? Veronica couldn't answer. Preston's trial was separate but ran concurrently. The evidence of arson was overwhelming. He'd been caught at the scene with accelerant on his clothes. His motivation was clear. He couldn't pay the $18 million, so he tried to destroy the hotels. I panicked, he admitted on the stand. I'd invested everything in those properties. I couldn't afford to lose them. So you decided to burn them down? His attorney asked. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted the problem to go away. Were you aware the hotel had guests at the time? I thought they'd evacuated. But you didn't check. You set fire to a building that could have had dozens of people inside. Preston had no good answer. The jury deliberated for 2 days. On the third day they returned with verdicts. For Veronica, guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, theft and money laundering. For Preston, guilty of arson, attempted destruction of evidence and conspiracy to commit fraud. The attempted murder charges were reduced to reckless endangerment in a plea deal. Sentencing was scheduled for the following month. In the meantime, my mother began the process of truly reclaiming her life. She sold the Magnolia Hill house, the one where she'd been forced to work as a maid. She said she never wanted to see it again. Too many bad memories, she explained. I want a fresh start. She bought a modern condo downtown with huge windows and beautiful views. She decorated it herself, choosing colors and furniture that made her happy. She invited her friends over, the ones Gregory had pushed away, and rebuilt those relationships. She threw herself into restoring the hotels. Each one received a complete renovation, bringing back the warmth and character Preston had removed. These hotels tell a story, she said. My mother's story, my story, our family's story. They should feel like home, not like a corporate chain. The flagship hotel reopened 6 months after the trial. My mother invited everyone who'd helped us. Jonathan, Dr. Santos, Mrs. Chin, Patricia, all the former employees who'd testified. At the opening ceremony, my mother gave a speech. 5 years ago, someone tried to erase me. They tried to convince me I was worthless, incompetent, lucky to be allowed to exist. They almost succeeded. But my daughter refused to accept that story. She came home and asked a simple question. Why is my mother wearing a maid's uniform? That question changed everything. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. Simone showed me that I wasn't broken. I was stolen from. She gave me the courage to fight back, to reclaim not just my possessions but my identity. She reminded me who I am. These hotels are more than just buildings. They represent resilience. They represent refusing to accept someone else's story about who you should be. They represent fighting for justice even when it seems impossible. And that's why I'm announcing the creation of the Nicole Patterson Foundation for Elder Financial Abuse Prevention. We'll provide legal help, counseling, and education to people who've been victimized the way I was. We'll make sure no one has to fight alone. The crowd applauded. My mother stood there, confident and strong, exactly the person she'd always been beneath the fear and medication and gaslighting. Sentencing day arrived. Judge Phillips looked grave as he reviewed the cases. Veronica Patterson, you orchestrated a cruel and calculated scheme to destroy another person for financial gain. You showed no remorse, no compassion, no recognition of the harm you caused. I sentence you to 10 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. You are also ordered to pay restitution in the full amount of damages awarded in civil court. Veronica started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of anger at being caught. Preston Marsh, your arson could have killed innocent people. Your attempt to destroy evidence shows consciousness of guilt and complete disregard for human life. I sentence you to 8 years in state prison for arson and conspiracy, followed by 3 years of probation. Gregory's sentencing was last. Per his plea agreement, his sentence was reduced, but Judge Phillips made his feelings clear. Gregory Patterson, you betrayed the woman who trusted you most. You drugged her, stole from her, and forced her into servitude. The only reason you're receiving a reduced sentence is your cooperation in convicting your co-conspirators. But make no mistake, you are just as guilty as they are. 5 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. You are also permanently barred from having any contact with Nicole Patterson. As they were led away, my father looked back at my mother one last time. She didn't look away, but she didn't acknowledge him either. He was a stranger now, someone she used to know. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked my mother how she felt. I feel like I can breathe again, she said. For 5 years, I lived in fear and confusion. Now I'm free. Not just legally free, but emotionally free. They can't hurt me anymore. What will you do now? I'm going to run my hotels, help other victims through my foundation, and spend time with my daughter. I'm going to live the life that was stolen from me. Do you forgive your ex-husband? She thought about this carefully. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him. But I don't need to forgive him to move forward. His actions don't define me anymore. I define me. As we drove away from the courthouse for the last time, my mother looked at me. Thank you, Simone. For everything. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Always, Mom. Always. Justice had been served. But more importantly, my mother had been restored. Not to who she was before, but to someone even stronger. Someone who survived and refused to stay a victim. Someone who turned her pain into purpose. Someone who proved that no matter how thoroughly someone tries to erase you, you can write yourself back into existence. 6 months after sentencing, life had transformed completely. My mother's foundation officially launched with a staff of 5 and partnerships with legal aid organizations across 3 states. The office was in the renovated flagship hotel, a beautiful space with her grandmother's photo on the wall. We've already helped 12 families, she told me, her eyes bright with purpose. People who were being financially abused by family members, caregivers, even lawyers. We connected them with attorneys, helped them get independent medical evaluations, walked them through the process I went through. How many of them won their cases? 10 so far. 2 are still in litigation. But every single one of them told me they felt hopeless until they found us. That's what matters. I'd completed my residency and joined a practice at the hospital where I'd been working. My focus was geriatric medicine, specializing in identifying signs of elder abuse. The experience with my mother had shown me how often doctors miss the signs, how easily vulnerable people can be exploited. Dr. Patterson, you have a new patient, the nurse told me one afternoon. 72-year-old woman, brought in by her grandson. He says she's been acting confused and needs to be declared incompetent. I felt my stomach tighten. Let me see her. The woman, Mrs. Gladys Harper, was alert and oriented. Her grandson, a slick-looking man in his 30s, hovered nearby. Mrs. Harper, can you tell me why you're here today? My grandson says I need a checkup. But I feel fine. Has anything changed recently in your life? She hesitated, glancing at her grandson. Well, I signed some papers last week. Financial papers. My grandson said they were to protect my money. I see. Mrs. Harper, would you mind if I spoke with you privately? That's not necessary, the grandson said quickly. I can answer any questions. I appreciate that, but I need to speak with Mrs. Harper alone. It's standard procedure. Once he was gone, Mrs. Harper relaxed. Doctor, I don't think I should have signed those papers. But he said if I didn't, I might lose my house. He said I was getting forgetful and needed help managing things. Are you forgetful? Not more than usual for my age. I pay my bills, manage my checkbook, remember my appointments. But he keeps insisting I'm sick. I ran cognitive tests. Mrs. Harper's results were completely normal. I called my mother's foundation. By the end of the day, Mrs. Harper had an attorney reviewing those papers. They turned out to be power of attorney documents that would have given her grandson control of everything. We'd caught it just in time. Thank you, she told me, crying. I thought I was going crazy. He kept saying I was confused, that I didn't remember things correctly. You're not crazy. Someone was trying to take advantage of you. But you're going to be okay now. Cases like that reminded me why all of this mattered. My mother's story wasn't unique. It happened every day to people who trusted the wrong person. My mother had started dating. His name was Marcus, a kind architect who designed the hotel renovations. He treated her with respect and genuine affection, never pushing, always listening. He's different, she told me over dinner one evening. He asks what I think, what I want. He doesn't try to make decisions for me or tell me what I should feel. That's how it should be. I know. But after Gregory, I'd forgotten what healthy felt like. Marcus reminds me. She looked happy in a way I hadn't seen since I was a child. Not just content, but genuinely happy. The hotels were thriving. My mother had brought back the personal touch my grandmother had started with. Guests received handwritten welcome notes. The staff knew regular visitors by name. Each hotel had its own character but shared the warmth that made people feel at home. We're booked solid for the next 6 months, she told me proudly. Not because we're fancy or expensive, but because people love the experience. That's what hospitality should be. She'd hired back almost all the staff Preston had fired, giving them better salaries and benefits. Mrs. Chun was now the general manager of the flagship location. Your mother is the best boss I've ever had, Mrs. Chun told me. She treats us like family, pays us fairly, listens to our ideas. This is how business should be done. One afternoon, I got a call from Jonathan. I have news. Veronica tried to appeal her sentence again. It was denied. She's officially serving her full 10 years. Good. Preston is also serving his full sentence. No early parole. And Gregory is prohibited from ever contacting your mother again. If he tries, it's an automatic parole violation. How's Mom's financial situation? Better than expected. Between the restored hotel business, the restitution payments, and the damages, she's worth about $20 million. The foundation is fully funded. She's set for life. She earned it. She did. And Simone? I'm proud of what you both accomplished. This case changed my practice. I've taken on 3 more elder abuse cases since yours, all because of the precedent we set. That means people are getting help. Exactly. 6 months later, we celebrated the first anniversary of my mother's foundation at a gala in the flagship hotel. Unlike Veronica's fake charity event, this one had real purpose and real results. The keynote speaker was Mrs. Harper, the woman I'd helped 6 months earlier. If I hadn't met Dr. Patterson and learned about the foundation, my grandson would have taken everything, she said. I'd be living in a nursing home I didn't need, losing my independence, maybe believing I really was incompetent. Instead, I'm still in my home, still managing my own life, and my grandson is facing fraud charges. That's justice. My mother stood to give her speech. A year ago, I stood in this very room and told you I'd been erased. Someone had stolen not just my money but my identity. They convinced me I was worthless, sick, deserving of nothing. Tonight, I stand here as proof that you can come back from that. You can reclaim yourself. This foundation has helped 27 families in our first year. 27 people who were being abused, exploited, or manipulated. We're just getting started. Because every person who trusts the wrong person, who finds themselves in an impossible situation, who needs someone to believe them, deserves help. I couldn't do this without my daughter, Simone, who refused to accept the story she was told about me. Who came home and asked the right questions. Who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. She saved my life, and now we're working together to save others. She looked at me with so much love and pride. To everyone in this room who's struggled, who's been hurt, who's wondered if they could survive, you can. You will. And you don't have to do it alone. The applause was thunderous. Later that evening, as the party wound down, my mother and I stood in the hotel lobby, looking at the photo of my grandmother. She'd be proud of you, Mom. She'd be proud of us both. We honored her legacy, not just by keeping the hotels but by using them to help people. Do you ever think about Gregory? About what he's doing in prison? Sometimes. But not with anger anymore. More with sadness for who he could have been but chose not to be. He had everything: love and family and a good life. He threw it away for money that wasn't even his. That's not my tragedy. It's his. Do you think you'll ever see him again? I hope not. That chapter of my life is closed. I'm writing new chapters now. Marcus appeared with glasses of champagne. To new chapters, he said, raising his glass. To new chapters, my mother echoed. As I left that evening, I thought about how much had changed in 18 months. I'd come home expecting to celebrate my graduation with my mother. Instead, I'd found her broken, stolen from, convinced she deserved nothing. Now she was running a successful business, helping people across the state, in love with a man who treated her well, and more confident than I'd ever seen her. The people who tried to erase her were in prison, their reputations destroyed, their schemes exposed. They'd lost everything while my mother had gained it all back and more. But the real victory wasn't the money or the hotels or even the prison sentences. The real victory was watching my mother stand tall, smile freely, and believe in herself again. They tried to convince her she was worthless. She'd proven she was priceless. They tried to make her disappear. She'd made herself impossible to ignore. They tried to write her story. She'd taken back the pen. And as I looked at the thriving hotels, the successful foundation, and my mother's genuine happiness, I knew one truth with absolute certainty. Some things can't be stolen. Not forever. Not if you refuse to stop fighting for them. My mother had fought for herself. She'd won. And now she was teaching others to do the same. That was the happy ending she deserved. Not because she got her money back or because her abusers went to prison, but because she remembered who she was and refused to be anyone else. Dr. Simone Patterson, proud daughter of Nicole Patterson, the woman who couldn't be erased.